Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Real quick, I just want to let you know this is not what the video is going to look like. This was a video that I had actually intended to upload a little less than a year ago, and fortunately, one of my viewers, one of my subscribers actually let me know in the comments, hey, the video is not what you uploaded. So I went back, took a look, and it was a completely separate video that had nothing to do with this. So I look different in this. This is actually at my old setup at a store in my hometown, but that's why it looks different. That's probably why I feel like I've aged 10 years as opposed to what the video looks like. But I hope you enjoy. It's about our experience with Airbnb and positives and negatives. But also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Alexander Howell, and today what I want to talk about is I've been waiting a couple of months to make this video because it's been an adventure. My wife and I have a lake home. We have a home in Kansas City, and then we also have a lake home about 2 hours away that's on Lake of the Ozarks. It's around the 68, 69 mile marker, and we actually used to live in a small community right next door to the lake home, and now we ended up buying a couple of years back a property that's on 28 acres. It needed a huge, huge renovation, and circumstances happened to the point where it not only needed it, it needed it because it ended up flooding because they used really terrible plumbing in the lines that ended up backing up and freezing and then bursting. And we didn't know about it for about a week to 2 weeks. We still don't know exactly when it occurred, but we hadn't been down there for, let's say, several days. So we renovated this whole place and have used it as our family's true retreat. It has been amazing for our kids who can go anywhere on the property. It has been amazing for our family who feels like they can go down there anytime. It is without question a dream come true. Well, when 2020 happened, and especially during the coronavirus pandemic, we looked at this place and said, well, we spend weekends down there. During quarantine, we spent about 2.5, 3 weeks down there. When we got back from Mexico, as most of you know based on our other videos about Merida. But we came back and we kind of sat down and had a conversation. Our renters that we have on some of our long-term rentals are incredible, but a couple of them worked in food service, and one house in particular basically went from making very good money in food service to making zero money in food service because their restaurant got shut down for months. And so we make good money, but we kind of had the heart-to-heart of, even though this is our retreat, even though this is our place, the place that we love, should we maybe look at Airbnb-ing? We'd had great experiences with a home that we had owned very close to the house, about a half mile away before this one had come up for sale. And we had great experiences the summer that we were actually trying to sell it. And people lived there, or people rented it. They treated it very well. And we thought it was great. And so we thought, let's just do the exact same thing. Let's put it on the market for its value. And then we proceeded to undervalue it. And then we proceeded to have good tenants that were amazing, that we didn't have to do anything to except maybe clean some sheets and some towels. And then we had a couple of pretty bad experiences. And I wanted to go through in this video, and I think it may have gotten a bit on the negative side, but here's the truth. I would do it again. I wouldn't do it with the house that I wanted to go live in, like our lake home or our main home. But I would do it for a house that I didn't see very often, or a house that I currently use as maybe a long-term rental to try to get some money, a little bit more money out of it. I would do this again. There's no question about it. But this is our experience with a home that is so sacred to us and one that we love so much. And there's going to be a lot of positives. Monetarily, it was a great idea. And there are going to be a lot of negatives. And really, those negatives only come from, 3 tenants. And really, it was one bad one. The other ones were just kind of roll your eyes and move on. It was really only one bad one. And if you could get over that, which we couldn't now, but if you could get over that, you'd be completely fine. And we love the platform. It's a large platform, so there's not a lot of personal back and forth between you and Airbnb. But it's a great platform. It was an interesting experience for us. And I just wanted to kind of lay out exactly what happened. And this is over about 3 to 4 months. I've wanted to make this video for at least a month since our last tenant left. But everything ended up good. We actually pulled the listing because we just realized that with this personal property, like the one that is going to go to my kids when we die, it's just not what we were comfortable doing. But I'm glad we did it so that we didn't have to question it anymore. So I would encourage you, if you have a property that you're comfortable with Airbnb-ing, it's a wonderful platform and it can be a great experience. I think there are a couple of things which I'll hit in the video that could make it even better. But if you like it, try it. And just like this channel, if you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little notification bell because that'll let you know anytime one of our uploads is here. I hope you guys have enjoyed our content. I've noticed we actually had, I got the email a couple of days back that in the last month, we've grown by 87 subscribers. So thank you to all of our new subscribers for being a part of this channel. It's amazing to see people that actually appreciate your content, comment, like, subscribe, and do all that kind of thing. So thank you to our current subscribers. Thank you to our new subscribers. And thank you to our even newest subscribers like you that needs to hit the like and subscribe button. Sorry, I've hit on it too much. Let's get to the let's get to the video. Airbnb, would you? Wouldn't you? What do you think? Let's see. Okay, so when it came to renting our home with Airbnb, the first thing we had to look at is just being very honest with exactly what we had. Now, we have an amazing lake home. It has acreage. It has its own private little cove with a dock, with a ramp, so it has private water access. It's been recently remodeled. And by the way, even though it's close to a small subdivision where we actually used to own a home, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's a couple hundred yards from there with a gate. It's secured access. Nobody's there when you're there. And so for us, we had to look at our place and just say, okay, we have an amazing space. Now let's look at all the different places on Airbnb that also have those features. And the truth of the matter was there really weren't many. There were a couple that had a lot of acreage with a small pond. So you had hiking, same as our place. We have about 28 acres, and they had a little bit more than that. But as far as the direct water access to the Lake of the Ozarks, that was a pretty big thing. You know, you're close to a community where you could offload and onload your boat and then store it on our property because we have tons of space. But for the most part, there weren't many places around us. And our thinking initially was, let's try to get this so that a lot of people want to rent it and we'll be good. We'll kind of satisfy our needs when it comes to what we're looking to, when it comes to how many people are renting on a day-to-day basis. So the next positive thing for us was we already had rented property via Airbnb, and we had great reviews on that property. We also had great reviews as guests as well. So that was a real big thing for us. We also have long-term rental property in Kansas City. So we're used to the, you know, when somebody moves out, you clean up and blah, 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 blah. It's a little bit different when it comes to short-term rentals, but the idea is still the same. You have to make sure that what you're presenting is the best possible vision of your property as soon as somebody comes in, and that's going to help you rent it for even more. Basically, the pictures that they see, the description that they see has to match their experience. And the other positive thing for us was we understood through both long-term and our short-term rentals that you're going to have some bad experiences. It's not something that's a complete deterrent. It's not something that's the most positive thing in the world. But the fact of the matter is, when you already have it in your mind that there are just going to be people that don't treat a property the way that you want it to be treated, that's kind of half the battle. So on that thought, you have to understand that we understood the risk. We knew that people weren't going to treat our house as their house, even as much as we tried to tell them that. We knew we'd have to do a lot of cleaning, less for some people that were on our property, more for others. And again, we knew we would have bad experiences. We had that with long-term rentals. We didn't really have that in our first Airbnb hosting experience. Most of the people there were really good about cleaning up after themselves, and we had all hard surface. So there was no carpet for things to kind of get mixed up in. It was very easy to clean. It was a small place, and people used it just as it was intended, to be a nice weekend retreat or week retreat. And so we kind of knew we've had the long-term experience with a couple of bad tenants. We've had pretty good luck at short-term rentals. We think we're good. Our mentality is such that we know we're going to get mostly positive experiences. But every once in a while, something's going to come along that's not going to be positive. And as long as you have that up here, you're far better off. On the same side as the positive things, like we had an amazing space, we'd already had the experience, we kind of had the expectation that things might run awry a little bit with risk. We also had a couple of things that were negatives, and it might sound like some of the positive things were there. That's more mentality. But with the negatives, we had never actually been living in or using personally the property that we had Airbnb'd. We obviously had never done that with rental property, so we were not used to coming back and trying to, you know, somebody living in it one weekend, and then we come in at the next weekend and trying to live in that house. And so it was a bit more personal. They were using our own stuff, and as much as that might sound like I've got a Karen mentality, popular phrase, hashtag 2020, it really was that. We were a little bit put off by it. Not that we looked at somebody and thought, oh, well, that's a bad person, we can't touch the things that they've had. It wasn't that at all. It was just when you have your own stuff, when you have your own sheets and your own comforters and, you know, your kitchen utensils and all of that stuff, you just kind of have to get through the mentality of this is what they're paying us to use for the week or weekend or whatever it might be. We have to be comfortable with that. And if not, we need to stop. But knowing that we were living there was a little bit more difficult than the Airbnb that we'd had in the past, where even though it was our own personal home, we weren't living in it anymore. We'd already bought a place. We were trying to sell it. It was theirs to rent for the weekend. So that was kind of the toss-up of we were used to renting a place that we owned, obviously, but we didn't have to come down and then enjoy the weekend in a house where somebody had already been there. I know it might sound, again, it's a total quote-unquote Karen mentality, but it was definitely something that we had to get through, and most of the time we did, because so many people that rented the place took very good care of it. It was when we'd come down and people hadn't that was a little difficult to get through. The next thing that was a bit of a negative, and this was more of a learning curve than any negative, is initially we set our price way too low. Now again, we have 28 acres at Lake of the Ozarks, private dock, private cove. The biggest setback for our property is that you can't really put a boat up there that has a stern drive engine or an engine that sits really low in the water, because our cove is very shallow as it goes out. So you can have a pontoon, a jet ski, a jet boat, even a couple of shallow water, let's say fishing boats. But for the most part, it's a very tough cove to get in and out of. You have to know the lake pretty well. Well, because of that, we thought that, oh, well, maybe, you know, even though we've got this beautiful home and it's got the acreage, we're going to set it low with the expectation that people are going to really want it. And it's, you know, I think we set it for $150 a night the first time, and we only had about a month and a half available. That was our test period of time. Well, in a month and a half, we set off the weekends that we were going to be down there. We set off certain other times just to make sure that we could, you know, clean up the house, and we had a day to do that. But we just put it out there, and it was like $150 a night, 28 acres, 2,500 square foot house, completely remodeled, beautiful, out in the middle of nowhere. It's all yours. And that was a huge mistake, because $150 a night for our place meant that, you know, with the 3 bedrooms that we have, it's a 3-bed, 2 full bath. You could basically fit 8 there, though, and that's what we said. And again, that was a mistake, but we said you could put 8 in the house, because we have a bunk bed with a trundle in one room. We have 2 giant couches. We have a bedroom that has a queen bed, and our master bedroom has a king. So we said 8 because it's like either couches or, you know, the trundle bunk bed. That makes sense to us. What it ended up doing was it took that cost of $150 a night down to whatever, 150 divided by 6, 150 divided by 7, 150 divided by 8. It took it down to that. And it might sound a little odd, but when somebody spends money on something, it tends to mean that they're more invested in it. So when they spend money on it, and it's a little bit more expensive, it seems like they really appreciate it more. And what we found was that when we had it priced for less, even though we had a couple of amazing tenants, I want to make sure that I say that too, we also had a couple that had reserved it in the beginning when the price was very low, and they didn't take care of the property. In fact, our worst person that I'll tell you about in a bit, they took care of it horrifically. I mean, they were in places that we told them not to be. They didn't listen to how the house should be treated. They left stains in places, that some of which I could fix and some of which I couldn't. But they rented it when it was low. As the price went up, we actually got much better tenants. And I think that has to do with the fact that even though you can split it among many parties, when each individual is actually invested in it, or each family is actually invested in it, it's a much more positive experience for the tenant, because they know they have a good place, and the owner because they know that the people are willing to pay, that the people that are willing to pay that really want to experience it in a positive way. So just to hit on the price thing one more time, there was also a thing that we didn't expect, and that was because we were moving the price up, because we listed at $150, that first month and a half was immediately booked. There was no question about it. Tons of people were interested. A lot of people were requesting the same weekend, and we ended up having it solidly booked. I mean, the first person that actually rented it ended up there in total for a month of about 2.5 weeks. It wasn't something we were expecting, but it was a huge positive for us because we knew that they had that price per night. We had a couple of discounts if somebody booked for more than a week or a month, But for the most part, we were like, this is a huge positive for us because we know that we have a good person in there for a long time. We then moved it up because we noticed that everything was going faster. Supply versus demand, blah, blah, blah. We thought, okay, well, if this many people wanted at 150, let's see what they wanted at, if they're willing to pay 180 or 175, one of those two. And it's still booked up. So the people that had initially booked it, though, or that were looking at it but hadn't quite booked it yet, they would call us, and they were actually, a couple of them were a little frustrated, a little angry at us because we had moved the price up and they didn't have a chance to book, or they felt that they didn't have a chance to book because they hadn't put the time and effort into going on and saying, okay, well, this is the weekend I want, and pushing the go button. And it was actually the person that had rented it for that week and a half period of time when we first started renting it that sent us a message and just said, hey, I noticed that you moved it up. We'd like to rent this for another week. Are you okay with that? And we said, absolutely. And gave them a private offer because they had treated our home like it was theirs. I mean, this guy cleaned up everything, took his trash, did everything you could possibly ask of a tenant, long-term or short-term. So we granted them that previous price, and we actually said, if you guys come down again, just let us know because, and we'll get to this later, we may or may not have taken the place off the market. But that was something that we were very, very surprised by. We were very surprised by it because we didn't expect that people that didn't move on it in time would be so upset if the price went up by a couple of bucks a day. So just something to keep in mind as you're listing. This is one that's very tough for me because as a young person, you know, I'm only 33 years old, so I'm still a young person. But I remember being very frustrated when I was younger and I wasn't respected the way that I felt that I should be respected by other adults. And what I mean by that is, you know, I would have conversations with people. I was going to school full time, 15. There was a year that I didn't take less than 15 credit hours in college. And I actually had a couple of semesters where I was taking 21 because I was catching up from a theater degree to a financial planning degree. And so there were some courses that really didn't make sense to get the financial planning degree at the University of Missouri. But I would always get frustrated when adults would tell me, people that were older than me would tell me like, oh, well, you just don't understand, you know, the government takes so much in taxes, you haven't experienced that yet. Well, and I'd get mad because I was like, dude, I'm working minimum 25, most of the time, you know, 35 hours a week at my job. I know what taxes are. So I'd get very frustrated when somebody would just assume that being a young person meant that I was irresponsible. But our experience was, and it's tough for me to say this because I was that person that was responsible, that if I had a hotel room or if I rented somebody's house, I was responsible for that person's property. We noticed a direct correlation between how well our property was taken care of and how old the individuals were. Fact of the matter is that the worst tenant we had was our minimum age of 21 because we do have alcohol in the house. And we told everybody you are not allowed to drink it, nothing like that. But you have to be 21 to be there because it is open access. You could figure out a way to get into it, and we didn't feel comfortable with anybody else being there unless it was kids, but adults were the ones that were around. You know, if it was a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old, we were fine with that as long as adults being around because they were the ones that took responsibility. And so we said, you have to be 21 to be there. And the people that rented it were 21. And they treated our home and our property, personal and otherwise, horrifically. Just absolutely horrifically. To the point where I had to go to AirBNB and request damages for the things that they did to our property. It wasn't, you know, a massive amount of stuff. It was more just they damaged this, they did this, it took time to do this. I had to bring in a professional cleaner to do that. 21. The next worst person was 23. The next worst person, mid-20s. I don't know the exact age. Everybody else was 30 plus. None of those individuals did we have issues with. Again, if you're a young person, if you're in your early 20s, what I will tell you is this. Be like I was at that age. Please, because young people need good representation. And unfortunately for us, we just didn't experience that. There was literally a direct correlation between my happiness when I arrived at the property and who had been staying there based on age. And that was it. It's unfortunate. I hate even saying it because I was the person that would be watching this video, like some of you probably are, thinking, I'm better than that. Why are you saying it? That's ridiculous. I know. My experience is what this is about. And my experience said, the older you were, the better you took care of the property. I'm just throwing it out there, even though it's frustrating even to me. I want you guys to know that's what we found. and you have to be very careful with fair housing laws. You have to be very careful in how you word things. But what I would absolutely say is make sure that you have that up front, that if there is an issue, you're going to need a bigger deposit. You're going to need a cleaning deposit, and they can have it back. And that's going to have to go for any age, I assume. Whoever comes in, I would say, you have to be able to reserve it for X number of dollars just in case something happens. And then the moment that we say you're good to go, you release it. I don't know exactly how to do it because, again, we may or may not have pulled our property off. But it's something I would suggest. And it was a direct correlation, and that's just a fact, unfortunately. Okay, and on top of that, and this isn't going to get a number put to it, an age put to it, it's not going to get anything put to it. I'm just going to be very, very honest with you and tell you the truth. Are you listening? Come on, right here. Idiots exist. You're going to have bad people. This has nothing to do with age, even though I just talked about that one thing. We're going to put that under the rug for now. Idiots exist. You're going to have terrible renters. The age correlation has frustrated me with Airbnb because it has not been the same in any way, shape, or form with long-term rentals. I have had young people that have treated my properties better than some of the older people that I've had that have rented the property. That's just a fact. And it's been opposite, vice versa. One, up is down, black is white, east is west. It's not mattered. It's totally on the individual. I personally think we just got a couple of young idiots. That's what I feel. Because I have tenants now that are in their mid and early 20s that are long-term rentals that are some of the best tenants I've ever had. I don't attribute any of this to age. I was saying the direct correlation was age with regard to who we rented through, and that's our personal experience. But most of the time, it doesn't matter. It's the individual. And so I would say, as the last negative I'll give you, idiots exist. Write that down. All right, so let's really kind of go through the beginning to end. We were wanting to get, and I covered this in the introduction, but we were wanting to get people in here because we saw during the pandemic, we could keep everything clean. I mean, Airbnb did a great job at having COVID-19 stuff, making sure that everybody was well aware of what they needed to do. So every time we came into a property, everything got Lysoled, everything got cleaned, floors, countertops, cabinets, carpets, everything was clean. Much cleaner than it ever had been when we weren't renting to people, which is probably not a positive for us or me to say, because that just makes us sound kind of like dirty people. But it's fine because we probably were. But in a 3 to 4 month period of time, we made approximately $5,000, a little bit over that, on about 10 to 12 people. Now, we live about 2.5 hours away from the lake house, so there is some negative to that. We were able to make it work. I just go down late one night, sleep there, come back early the next morning, and I just spent kind of all night cleaning. It really wasn't a big deal because my schedule is very fluid, especially when the world is on fire. But it worked out for us because I could get down there, I could clean everything up, I could come back, we could have somebody in the next day. It was fine, but the numbers were a little over $5,000 within 3 to 4 months, which ended up pretty much taking care of our mortgage payment, which is a huge positive. And again, with COVID-19 and our long-term renters, some of them weren't able to pay, and I wanted to keep them because they were so good before, again, the world was on fire, that it made sense to just say, okay, well, if we have this house and we have our main house and our rentals are looking a little shaky, let's make the right decision. Let's push for this property to make us a little bit of money just in case it hits the fan. Luckily, even though it kind of did hit the fan, it didn't really in our rentals. Our people were able to come back under different circumstances. Things were renegotiated. Everything worked out. But for the time, it made a lot of sense. And I will still say I don't regret doing it because that money ended up making basically everything that we missed on rent a complete wash. So the next thing is mentality more than anything. So we had 10 to 12 tenants throughout that period of time. One stayed a total of 2.5 weeks in the very beginning. The ones that stayed the least amount of time stayed 2 nights. They just stayed the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then left. We had one horrible tenant that, again, I said I would talk about this person. So it was a group of young people, and I know I've already hit on this, so I'm not going to talk about the young people factor, but they were. And they just treated it like dirt. We got a stain on our table. We got stains on, a couple of different little pieces of furniture that we have around the house. They made everything dirty. They messed up some of the stuff that we leave down for our tenants, like card games and board games and puzzles, like all of that stuff we had to replace. They got into, and this is going to sound, again, Karenish, but we have a large garage that has a lot of tools, a lot of sharp things, a lot of personal equipment that we use while we're down there, but that we don't really trust people to use. They tried. Luckily, I took keys out of most of it, but they still use like some of my kids' stuff, and they're 21 years old. They shouldn't be on it. And they left it outside, and it pissed me off completely. And I was irate, went to Airbnb, contacted them, said a couple of things that were probably not nice. They weren't nice at all. They were terrible, terrible things. And I went off because it was like, this is in here. This is in the description of the home. This is in the home's manual. And they treated it like crap. And even in like our master bedroom, I was finding stains for a day. You know, and I'm talking about a day. I'm not saying I was there for a year and found stains throughout. So no, I was going through every, square inch of the house because I was finding stuff left and right. And, it took me 10 hours to clean the house that day. But those are the ones you remember. They're stained in your brain. But it was one day. We still collected a good amount of money. I think we collected, if it was 2 nights or 3 days, it would have been $300 or $450 at the time because they were the ones that rent in the beginning. We still collected a good amount of money. Was it worth it for them? No, but the others that made up for them, yes. Idiots exist. I think I said it before. And then we had 2 decent clients that, I still had to repair a couple of things. It was frustrating. It was like kind of just dumb things. Like how did you not know that you were making a mistake at that point? I feel like I have to talk to you like I talk to my kids. Like that, really? That's what happened? Come on. But it wasn't a big deal. The other 7 to 9 people that stayed, and the ones that stayed for the majority of the time, were great. We had no issues. Had to come down, clean, do that kind of thing. But they pulled the sheets off the beds. They put the towels by the washing machine. They did the dishes and left them. It was perfect. The ones that are the worst, they're the ones that mentally scar you. But you have to look at the positives. The majority of our money, by a significant margin, was made by people who left the place in perfect working order. I always had to go back to that whenever we'd come down after the terrible people. And this is more for if you've decided, hey, even though everything I've said has probably sounded a little bit negative, I still want to do Airbnb, or I still love Airbnb. This is what I'm going to do. The one piece of advice I will give you is don't count on Airbnb to fix things for you. We submitted a laundry list. We didn't really submit anything for the other 2 that just kind of messed stuff up. I was like, whatever, I'll fix it, not a big deal. The one horrible tenant, we did. We submitted a laundry list of items, and we submitted a laundry list of items because we were so mad that it was like, okay, cool, we're submitting everything. We're submitting everything we possibly can because you people were so terrible to our place. We never ran into that with the other Airbnb. And for our long-term tenants, most of the time it's, knock on wood, it's been, cleaning the carpets, repainting a room, doing a little sheetrock repair. It's never been a big deal. For this, it was, and we just submitted everything. Airbnb, within about a 36-hour period of time, basically said, hey, you need to send us an email and answer 5 questions. I was traveling. I was unable to even answer my phone at the time because I was out in the middle of nowhere. And within 36 hours, they shut the ticket down and basically wiped it aside, and we didn't get anything back. 2 things. 1, don't count on Airbnb for anything outside of renting your place and having the platform. And 2, it's not their fault. I'm not blaming Airbnb for this at all. What it is 1, I was just incommunicado. I'm the main person on the account. My wife is not. She didn't have access to my account. It was on me that I wasn't able to respond within 36 hours. Still wish they would have given me a week, but whatever. I digress. But Airbnb is a huge company. They have a massive platform, and I don't know how many places they have for rent, but let's just call it millions. It might be hundreds of thousands. It might be tens of thousands. I'm going to call it millions. And each property is not their problem. That's just a business of that scale. So it's more of a warning of understand where you are and what you're doing, because Airbnb is not going to be there to help you. And if you do submit a ticket like that, Make sure the main person on the account has cell phone signal for a long period of time, and or always, which is a positive. When you're in the Ozark Hills of Missouri, like I was, I didn't. And that, unfortunately, that cost us. Okay, so very last point that I want to make is this, because I feel like I may have had a bit of a whiny pants session here. The question has come to me, like, would you do it again? The first thing I would say is make sure with your insurance carrier for your homeowner's insurance for the property that you're looking to rent that they're okay with it. You know, ours worked on it and everything turned out fine, but it's something that's overlooked. So you have to be able to do it through your insurance carrier or the way that you've talked about the way that your mortgage agreement works. But make sure that those fine points are in line before you do anything. Second, yeah, I'd 100% do it again. Okay, I'll give it this caveat. I would 100% use Airbnb again. And as most of you on this channel know, my wife and I purchased property in Merida that we are in the process of designing, and then we will eventually be in the process of renovating that home. We are not ready to retire there yet. We want to. We really want to tomorrow, but we're just not ready yet. And because we're not ready, we need to figure out a way for that property to make us some income. And one of the ways that we're going to utilize that is going through a property manager that's down there that is actually the architect of our home as well. We're going to hopefully make sure that he can rent our place and manage all of that too. But the biggest thing that we're looking at is we need to be able to rent it to make a little bit of extra income. How is he going to list it? More than likely Airbnb. Will I have any problem with it? None whatsoever. Because that's just our mentality. We're not going to be there. Somebody else is going to be in charge of cleaning it up and managing it and making sure that everything looks nice. And when we come down, it's going to be just the same. It's going to be maintained well, all of that stuff. So with that particular property, I'm completely fine with that. But the caveat for me is if I'm personally, and some of you might be completely fine with this, so feel free to hit the comments and say, you're wrong, everything's great. That's not my mentality. My personal feeling is that I don't think I will do an Airbnb again on this property simply because it hurt me mentally when I would go down there and somebody hadn't treated it the way that we treat our home. And I'm sure most people can probably get over that, but we have spent years there. We have renovated it from studs to completion. We have done everything we could to invest our own money into making this place an amazing retreat for our family. And by the way, an amazing retreat for our family means that everybody is able to come down. Everybody can fit. We've built rooms into the garage where most people weren't allowed to go, by the way. But we've built rooms in there that are self-sustaining, that you walk into it, it doesn't feel like you're in a garage room. It feels like you're in the house. But we've built it so that as many people as can come down there and feel like they are welcome and happy to be there. And it's a place that we're never going to sell. I mean, my kids are going to inherit this place after my wife and I are on our next journey through consciousness. But that's what hurt, was that somebody came into our place and just disrespected it. But if it's not that kind of place for us, our place in Merida, our place, or another home, a place that we currently have long-term rentals in, maybe we want to convert them to Airbnb, I'd absolutely use it again. I think it's an amazing service. I think they take very little for the platform that they are on, and I think they do a fantastic job. So when I can get past it being my stuff, it's fantastic. And again, when it was a house that we owned but that we didn't live in anymore down there, that we had for 3 months and a couple of people rented it, it was great. I didn't have a problem at all. And for 7 to 9 tenants that we had at our place, I didn't have a problem at all. It was just a couple, and I can get over that. But if the question is, would you do it again? 100%. No questions asked, I would. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, in conclusion, I would absolutely Airbnb a property again. A lot of times it seems like when I get into a riff, I still get a little angry with some of those people. But the fact of the matter is, it's a wonderful platform. It really was a great experience. And again, if you think about the fact that with one property, we didn't have weekends listed that we wanted to be down there. We just had 4 days listed, and sometimes we'd put in a caveat that you had to stay 5 just to make sure that we didn't have to deal with it and kind of get around that. But then if we weren't down a weekend, they could stay as long as they wanted to, and we would make a good amount of income. So I would say this, if you're mentally prepared for it, I would Airbnb a property tomorrow. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great platform, and they really do provide almost a one-stop shop to getting everything taken care of. So would recommend, no questions asked. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel and hit the little notification bell to let you know whenever one of my new videos goes live. We should have a couple of them coming out here in the next couple of days, including a podcast episode. But it really helps the channel when you like and subscribe it. You know, we're continuing to grow. In the last month, we added 87 people to the channel, and it has been absolutely fantastic. So I hope you guys enjoy watching these and enjoying the videos. It's been amazing. And outside of that, please feel free to follow me on social media. As you guys know, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, it's all at Alexander from KC. Follow that hashtag. It's going to be me. LinkedIn is linkedin.com, and just look me up, Alexander L. Howell. I think it's linkedin.com/n/Alexander L. Howell. So that's me on LinkedIn if you want to get in touch with me professionally. And as always, send me an email, alexander@alexanderhowell.com. It is the easiest way to have a long-form conversation with me outside of being on the 10 Tabs Open podcast, which again, look it up, 10tabsopen.com. Look me up online, alexanderhowell.com. It should get you links to everything that I'm a part of, including the YouTube channel, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, blah, 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 blah. You know, anyway, thanks again. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful week, a wonderful year, even though it's 2020. Let's just get it on down to 2021. Peace.